the big dinner party turned from me trying Vietnamese food on you whilst having no clue how to make Vietnamese food, into a big bowl of pasta that is familiar to you and familiar to me, and we can just sit around and relax without pushing ourselves to these limits of human ability.
It didn't have to be the Olympics of cooking.
It doesn't
Every
need
dinner
to be.
party anymore.
No, it doesn't. I think people like home style cooking and family style serving are way more popular now than they used to be. And that I really put that down to, first of all, cost of living, but also COVID. And that moment we understood that actually food should be healing rather than just one of all those other activities that we do all day long that push us, like going to the gym, like going, all that we try to kind of measure ourselves against the kind of this impossible standard of living that is just frustrating and never quite fulfills.
Do you, that's interesting, because if I look at your books, do you feel you've reflected that trend in your, starting with Simple, I guess, which was almost like a plea from all of us. Look, we love your books, Yotam, but please give us something that we can actually cook a little bit more simply and quickly and for our kids. Yeah. And was that, you've reflected that a bit in your books?
Yeah, no, I read.
Simple, comfort. You're telling us the story.
Yeah, I read the messages, and I read, when nobody looks, I also read the vicious comments of The Guardian, readers' comments, and I know that I have a reputation of someone that makes you go very far to sort out your ingredients and then leaves you with a whole pile of dishes to wash the following day. And I'm totally aware of that. And as Simple was either conscious or a subconscious attempt to kind of prove that you can get quite a lot of flavor, complexity, with much less work and fewer ingredients and less time spent in the kitchen. And I think it was a success. Some people told me that it was a success because they said, finally I can cook this food with more ease, and I completely take that. And I think since Simple, I have been spending more of my time thinking, what does it actually mean to cook this recipe? When do I cook? When does one cook it? How much effort goes into it? And now I find myself, funnily, from a grand old age, talking to younger chefs and say to them, is someone actually going to cook this? I ask this question, who's going to cook this? Because they bring up all these ingredients, they bring it to the table, and there's a bit of this, there's a bit of that, mostly with restaurant chefs that spend a lot of time impressing. And I said, that's all fine and it's delicious, but who on earth is going to cook this? Right. And I think this is a very valid question to ask, because I just want to be understood. I want people to cook my food. I don't want the recipe to sit there and nobody thinks that that's relevant to them.
Become a competition, because that, in a way, that defeats the whole point of the joy of cooking for friends and family. If you're feeling like you're on display,
there's nothing wrong with a bit of a competitive edge, but when it's all about a competition, then it induces anxiety, and anxiety is something we have way too much of in our world. There's just too much anxiety, and there's no need for it, because food really is one of those activities that shouldn't induce anxiety. It's as simple as that.
This looks beautiful.
It does look beautiful. It looks great.
So what do we have?
So there's kind of different influences, and I just wanted to capture all those influences here. So for example, coconut milk.
Yeah.
It's a core cooking element when you create a curry. Another one, the chickpeas. So you could use jarred or canned chickpeas, no problem at all. And I have a recipe in one of the Test Kitchen cookbooks, which is just slow cooked chickpeas. They come out of a jar with some tomatoes, ginger, garlic, and everything goes into a Dutch oven, goes on the top, and you take it off after a couple of hours and you get this whiff of incredible flavors, and you've done absolutely no cooking. You just threw things in. And for that, like using tinned chickpeas is not a problem at all. Curry leaves are really, really important.
I've never, so this is totally new to me.
So just take it and smell it. No, crush it a bit though.
You've become an adjective. You have.
I'm sure. Well, yes, I do know that.
Yeah. Does it still feel strange? I go to dinners and people say, "Oh, that's very Ottolenghi."
Yeah. Yeah, it's very weird because at the end of the day, I'm just me, and it doesn't really matter to me. But I'm also very much aware that people have been getting a lot of joy from the food that I've published over the years. But in actual fact, I think it's all about what people do at home that really matters to me. So the biggest compliment that I can get is if someone comes to me and says, you know, this recipe is a permanent feature in my kitchen, and even if the next generation says that, that's even better. So my kids cook at that now for themselves, because you know, books come and go, newspaper articles come and go, but if there's a recipe that stays within a family, that's like forever, and that is the biggest gift that I can be getting.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The girl who walked into the BBC in 1999 as a trainee would not have believed the experiences that I have had. As a Scot, of course, it was incredibly exciting to cover Scotland at the Euros in Germany.
The Scots have completely outnumbered the Germans here in the city centre.
But the whole time I was thinking these are great shots for my report. I was being professional as much as I could be. When I first started covering women's sport, many people weren't terribly interested. The first time I realised that the women's game had progressed as much as it has was when England played at Wembley for the first time ever.
Wembley Way is packed with supporters. We just walked down there to get to the stadium.
To turn around and look around that stadium, packed out, it was spectacular. You do try to be impartial as a journalist, but I'm not ashamed to say I shed a tear on that day because they had achieved something that every little girl now dreams of. I think representation is incredibly important because you've got to see it to be it. I've certainly noticed a difference in the younger generation. If they don't say, I want to play for England one day, they do say, I want to do your job. I've been incredibly privileged to have had a front seat to watch women's sport grow into this incredible force. And now we've got the next generation waiting in the wings to hopefully take it further.
Live from London, this is BBC News. The UK's financial regulator estimates the total compensation for motorists mis-sold car finance could be £18 billion. Protesters in Tel Aviv call for the release of hostages as Israel's Prime Minister promises relentless efforts to free the remaining hostages in Gaza after new videos show two still alive but severely emaciated. An unmanned police helicopter is tested in the UK for the first time. Larger than existing drones used by police forces, it has a greater range and cuts emissions. Also today, the BBC launches an investigation into alleged drug use by two stars of Strictly Come Dancing. And in sport, Harry Brook hits a century as England look to seal a series victory against India in the final test at the Oval. Hello and welcome to BBC News. I'm Luquessa Burak. The UK's financial regulator says a compensation scheme for motorists who are mis-sold car finance could cost up to £18 billion. The FCA is proposing an industry-wide compensation scheme for people who are charged hidden commission. On Friday, the Supreme Court ruled that the commissions from lenders to dealers weren't illegal, but left open the possibility of compensation in some cases. Our BBC Business correspondent Mark Ashdown outlined what exactly the FCA is saying.
They've announced they're going to consult on a compensation scheme. This follows that Supreme Court ruling on Friday about motor finance, about how fair or unfair some motor loans were being provided to consumers by lenders and car dealerships. And this could amount to a compensation package, they say, of up to £18 billion. Now that would mean a large-scale redress scheme. They're going to run through all the details in this consultation, work out those different factors they're going to consider, come up with a scheme they feel is fair to both consumers and the lenders and car dealerships, and then people will be paid that money. It could range from a couple of £100 up to £1,000 or so. It could have been a lot worse for the lenders and by extension the UK economy to the point where there are estimations it could be on a scale of the PPI mis-selling scandal. Many people will remember from decades ago. That amounted to £50 billion in compensation. There were figures being bandied around that it could be that high if the lenders had lost that case entirely on Friday. So much so that the Treasury and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves tried to intervene to give evidence to the Supreme Court, were also minded to potentially intervene if it had gone the other way. such was the destabilising effect it could have on the UK economy and to the rest of the world in terms of investment into the UK. So I think there's a sigh of relief there that we're not talking sort of 40, 50 billion. Certainly up to 18 billion is a huge amount of money. Just to give a bit of context there, what the FCA has said is they don't think it'd be any lower than 9 billion given the amounts involved and the costs. There are some analyst estimates it could be as high as 18 billion. They don't think it will necessarily get there. Somewhere in the middle is a potential. I put to a source, is 13, 14 billion more likely? They said yes, but it could be higher, it could be lower.
And that was Mark Ashdown there. There's been widespread outrage after Hamas released videos showing 2 Israeli hostages alive but emaciated. The EU Foreign Affairs chief called the videos appalling. Israeli protesters blocked the main Tel Aviv highway during morning rush hour on Sunday, calling for the immediate release of the hostages and the end of the war. Whilst on Saturday night, tens of thousands of people, including the families of hostages, turned out for the weekly rally in Tel Aviv. Israeli media described it as the largest turnout in recent months. In Gaza itself, the health ministry says 6 more people have died from starvation and malnutrition as the hunger crisis continues. Meanwhile, Israel's far-right National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, has visited the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem, and he said he prayed there and also called for Israel's sovereignty of the Gaza Strip. This is a violation of a decades-old arrangement covering one of the most sensitive sites in the Middle East. Online pictures show Itamar Ben-Gvir, who has been sanctioned by the UK government, appearing to lead Jewish prayers at the compound with Israeli settlers, and the compound itself is known by Jews as the Temple Mount. Under the status quo arrangement, Jews can visit the site but not pray, which Muslims see as a major provocation.
Hamas horror videos came due to one thing. They attempt to create pressure on the state of Israel. And I say, from here of all places, from Temple Mount, we should send a message to make sure we conquer the whole Gaza Strip, announce sovereignty of the whole Gaza Strip, take down every Hamas man and encourage voluntary immigration. Only this way will we return the hostages and win the war.
Our Middle East correspondent Ugo Bashega has more on the minister's visit and what happened.
This is going to be seen as a major provocation by Muslims because of this arrangement around the Al-Aqsa compound, which is known by Jews as the Temple Mount in occupied East Jerusalem, because this arrangement allows Jews to visit the complex but not pray there. And we've seen those images of Itamar Ben-Gvir leading Jewish prayers there earlier today, and he released a video on his social media accounts, again repeating some of his positions. He has been urging the government, the Israeli military, to occupy the whole of the Gaza Strip, and he again talked about this idea of what he described as a voluntary migration of Palestinians from Gaza, which many experts say would amount to the forced displacement of the population and a possible war crime. So obviously Itamar Ben-Gvir is an ultra-nationalist member of the Prime Minister's coalition. He has been sanctioned by the UK government because of his repeated incitements of violence against Palestinian communities in the West Bank, and today he was again sharing his very inflammatory remarks and his controversial positions. Yeah, so we don't have more details about this incident. Again, the Red Cross there, the Red Crescent, saying that its headquarters in Khan Yunis came under attack, an Israeli attack. The Israeli military has told us that they were not aware of any kind of military activity in that area. But also today, the health ministry in Gaza said 6 more people have died from starvation and malnutrition, which again shows the desperate, catastrophic situation in Gaza because of this humanitarian crisis there. The United Nations saying that still a very limited amount of aid is entering Gaza, and we've seen some chaotic images of crowds, stopping convoys, carrying supplies to try to grab some aid that's been delivered by aid organizations and the United Nations. And again, these organizations saying that more needs to be done. They've been urging the Israeli government to lift the restrictions that have been imposed on the entry of supplies into Gaza to try to alleviate the situation there.
And that was Ugo Bashega there. Here the government is working on plans to evacuate some children from Gaza and bring them to the UK for medical treatment. It's unclear how many children might be involved, but it's thought the first evacuations could happen over the coming weeks. The Sunday Times newspaper first reported that the UK was looking to bring seriously ill children to the UK. A government spokesman said, "We are taking forward plans to evacuate more children from Gaza who require urgent medical care, including bringing them to the UK for specialist treatment, where that is the best option for their care." Our political correspondent Damien Grammaticus has more.
At the minute, only sketchy details. I mean, if you look back, since the start of this conflict, so October 2023, no children have been brought by the government here from Gaza to the UK for medical treatment. The UK has given money, I think £1 million, to agencies in the region who are funding care for children who've been taken out of Gaza, and adults too, being treated in hospitals around. And also a couple of £1 million more for supplies going into Gaza. So what's significant here, I think, is the first time the government is looking to do that. There was criticism not very long ago from Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee about the fact no children had come, and said the government should be doing this. So Keir Starmer came out and said they were working on doing that, and now the government is saying within weeks it's working on this plan. Now there are some children have been brought out, it's worth saying, by a private organisation, 3 children so far, to have medical treatment in the UK from Gaza.
And that was Damien Grammaticus there. The trial of the deposed Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has begun in Dhaka, where she's facing charges of crimes against humanity, allegedly committed during a mass uprising against her rule last year. Ms Hasina, who fled to India, is being tried in absentia. She's accused of ordering the use of lethal weapons to target protesters a year ago. More than 800 people were killed in weeks of violence. Ms Hasina denies all charges. A massive fire at an oil depot near Russia's Black Sea resort of Sochi has been blamed by the Kremlin on a Ukrainian drone attack. It's part of a series of strikes on Russian military infrastructure over the weekend. In response, Russia has attacked a number of Ukrainian cities, including a missile strike which destroyed homes and civilian infrastructure in Ukraine's southern city of Mykolaiv. With the very latest, here's our World News correspondent, Joe Inwood.
Hearing drones in the sky and gunfire on the ground, residents in the city of Samara start filming. When a fuel tank at an oil refinery is hit. This was one of several Ukrainian drone strikes launched over the weekend, targeting installations across the south of Russia. A massive fire was also caused at an oil depot near the Black Sea resort of Sochi, causing nearby flights to be cancelled.
I want to express my gratitude for our special long-range operations on Russian territory. Their impact is significant, and each of them is tangible for the enemy, and our operations will continue. Russia is dragging out the war, so it will receive just responses.
Overnight, Russia launched its own attacks, as it often has, hitting Ukrainian cities. This was Mykolaiv in the south, where homes and civilian infrastructure was destroyed. Local authorities say at least 7 people were injured in this frontline city, so often the target of Russian fire. Just to the southeast, Kherson was also hit. Authorities say a bridge across the Dnipro River was badly damaged and urged residents to evacuate. It comes at the end of a particularly deadly week for Ukraine, including an attack on Kyiv that killed 31 people. President Trump has set a deadline of Friday for Vladimir Putin to end the war. That looks as far away as ever. Joe Inwood, BBC News.
Now, police helicopters used for monitoring major incidents, catching criminals, and also, of course, looking for missing people in remote locations are very costly. So the National Police Air Force Service are testing an unmanned police helicopter for the first time. It is much larger than existing drones that are currently used, and it can travel a lot further. Well, Dan Johnson has been to watch the initial test flight.
Liftoff for the new police eye in the sky. Robocopter. It's leaner, greener and cheaper.
This aircraft can fly up to around 8 to 12 hours.
And it can stay up for much longer.
We get calls daily with a variety of different use cases, from missing persons, pursuits, calls around the electric bikes and things like that. And it's very costly to deploy our helicopters on an hourly basis. This offers us an opportunity to deploy the same type of capability to provide a more affordable air support whilst also still retaining our crewed aircraft as well for the likes of the higher speed pursuits, etc., which those aircraft are designed to be doing.
We're told this doesn't mean an end to crewed police helicopters. It's supposed to complement the fleet, but it could mean an end to the noise complaints because it is a lot quieter.
Cardiff radar, this is X-ray 1, nothing heard. Oh.
There's still a crew of 2, a pilot and a spotter, but flying with their feet firmly on the ground.
What you're looking at there is what I would see in the aircraft. So my job as an observer, tactical flight officer, doesn't change.
Aren't you going to miss actually flying?
It's a blended, we're not replacing the aircraft. We're not replacing the helicopters, so it's going to be a blended fleet.
Thank you, free speed, descent flight level 150, Tom Jet 698.
It's got the same high-powered camera and infrared ability to spot suspects or missing people. The Coast Guard uses something similar to search the seas, but this will be the first to fly over residential areas, and it could mean more unmanned aircraft taking to our skies.
We're really excited about the opportunities for emergency services. We're also working with healthcare providers to see what we might be able to do in healthcare. We're working with companies like Network Rail and Seize AI to look at opportunities around infrastructure surveillance. And we're just generally really excited about what we think unmanned aircraft systems might be able to enable in the future.
This is still a prototype in early stage test flights, but the chopper without a copper is likely to be a reality in the next few years. Dan Johnson, BBC News, Avonmouth.
Now, weather warnings have been upgraded to amber for most of Scotland. As Storm Floris bears down on the UK, the amber warnings will last from 10 a.m. on Monday through to 10 p.m. on Monday night. There's also a yellow warning across Northern England, North Wales and Northern Ireland from 6 a.m. on Monday through to midnight. Our weather presenter here at the BBC, Ben Rich, has said that this kind of storm is rather unusual for August.
This is a weather event that is taking place and is not that common, I have to say, at this time of year. We can take a look at what's going on. We have that amber warning from the Met Office. It covers central southern parts of Scotland. And the idea of 80 to 90 mile per hour wind gusts, this would be a significant storm in the winter. The fact that it's coming in the summer, that will only make it more disruptive. And this is something we'd expect to see in the autumn as well. A powerful jet stream high up in the atmosphere, picking up an area of cloud, that shield of cloud you can see on that image there, and the jet stream interacting with that weather system is going to deepen an area of low pressure. And you can see on this sequence that low is just deepening, more and more lines surrounding the centre of that low. It looks like a dartboard essentially, and that shows us that we have a storm that really does mean business. It is those central and northern parts of Scotland covered by that amber warning, with those gusts in exposed places 80 to 90 miles per hour, but generally 50 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts. We've got the Edinburgh Fringe Festival going on, for example, at the moment. A lot of events taking place at this time of year. That's one of the things that makes this situation potentially so disruptive. But as you can see there, also parts of Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales covered by those yellow warnings. So a very windy day to come across all parts of the UK.
OK, let us catch up with the sport now. And the fifth test between England and India is heading for an exciting finish, as well as the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is, or rather has been taking place today. To tell us all about this is the BBC Sports' Hugh Ferris. Hugh, lovely to see you there. So we'll kick off with the cricket. So what's the latest then between England and India?
Yes, hello, Luquessa. Could England be about to pull off yet another historic fourth innings chase? It used to be in Test cricket. If anything really above 150 or 200 was there for the team batting last to try and achieve, it would be pretty tricky for them to do so. The changing nature of the way that the game is much more attacking now, perhaps pitches a little bit more conducive for that fourth innings chase. And England are 317 for 4 at tea on day 4 against India. They still need 57 runs to win. It's so crucial because The series currently sits at 2-1 to England. Were they to lose, it would be a drawn series. Were they to win, of course, they would seal victory in this final test of the 5. So this is the scorecard on day 4, and because it is day 4, it will reach a conclusion. No drawn test here between these two, as it was the last time they played at Old Trafford. And the key contributions coming from 2 Yorkshiremen. Harry Brook, 111, out shortly before tea. Joe Root still there, 98 not out. And perhaps the most pivotal moment of the day is when Harry Brook was on just 19. He skied a pull towards the boundary. Mohamed Siraj, the bowler who's taken more wickets than any other in this series for either side, took the catch, but then took a step backwards. His foot on the boundary sponge. It meant it was 6 and not out. Harry Brook going on then to score all of those runs and take England to the precipice of what would be another historically successful chase. And you have to bear in mind that it was just 3 years ago that they set the record, England, for their best ever chase. That was against India at the dawn of this Bazball era under coach and captain that has really brought in this new way of playing Test cricket. That was 378. Earlier on in the series, the first match against India, this time around, they got to 371. This needs to be 374. So historic, yes, Lucreza, but they're making something of a habit of it, particularly against India.
And you, very quickly, whilst we've been on there, we've had the checkered flag in the Hungarian Grand Prix. What happened?
Yeah, just finished at the Hungaroring, celebrating 40 years since its first Formula One Grand Prix. No team has won more times there than McLaren, and a 13th victory was sealed today. A 1-2 as well. Lando Norris beating Oscar Piastri to reduce his teammates' lead in the drivers' standings. Charles Leclerc started on pole with the 2 McLarens just behind him. The Ferrari held its position as Norris slipped back from 3rd to 5th at the start, but thereafter on a track where it is very difficult to overtake, it became about the strategy. Norris only stopped once to change his tyres. It proved the difference as he held off Piastri's charge right at the end to win by under a second. The gap between the two is now 9 points heading into the sport's 3-week summer break. Charles Leclerc and his Ferrari finishing 3rd to complete that podium. And Lucreza, we were talking at this time yesterday about Lewis Hamilton saying he was useless in qualifying, started 12th, finished 12th. So not much better in the race.
A lovely point to end on. OK, thank you very much, Hugh. Thank you. You are watching BBC News. Now, the BBC has launched an investigation into alleged drug use by 2 Strictly Come Dancing stars. The move follows reports in a national newspaper alleging cocaine use by the stars, who've not been named. According to The Sun on Sunday, the allegations were made in a legal submission to the BBC back in March by the law firm Russells on behalf of Wyn Evans, a former celebrity contestant on the show. Our arts correspondent, Noor Nanji, has more.
Well, this story was first reported by The Sun on Sunday, and as you say, the stars involved have not been named. But according to The Sun newspaper, this alleged cocaine use by these 2 stars was widely discussed on the show. And it also says the claims relating to this alleged drug use were made on behalf of Wyn Evans, a former contestant himself on the show, in a legal submission to the BBC back in March. Now, we understand the BBC has now launched an investigation into all of this, which it is leading, and that it's also engaged an external law firm to help with that. But all of this is a further blow to Strictly Come Dancing. The show has been on air for more than 20 years, but in the past year it's been rocked by multiple controversies relating to the behaviour of some of its professional dancers and also celebrity contestants. Now, in response to these latest developments, the BBC said it has clear policies and protocols in place to deal with serious complaints. It also encouraged anyone with concerns to speak up and said that it wouldn't be appropriate for it to say anything further at this stage. Wyn Evans, for his part, has not responded to a request for comment from BBC News. You may recall that he left his BBC radio show earlier this year, and that's after he apologised for making an inappropriate comment on the Strictly Live tour.
And that was Noor Nanji. Pope Leo has implored young Catholics from around the world to aspire to great things and not to be satisfied with the superficial. The pontiff added that the fullness of life depends neither on what we accumulate nor on what we possess. He was speaking in front of more than 1 million people at the World Youth Meeting in Rome. Addressing Mass in a vast field, the pontiff said the pilgrims were a sign that a different world was possible, in which conflicts were resolved with dialogue and not weapons. Pope Leo was speaking on a massive stage surrounded by hundreds of green-robed bishops and priests.
In communion with Christ, our peace and hope for the world, we are closer than ever to young people who suffer the most serious evils, which are caused by other human beings. We are with the young people of Gaza. We are with the young people of Ukraine.
Well, young Catholics there attending said that they were happy to see the Pope and encouraged by the huge turnout.
I didn't expect to see all these people. I know there's going to be a lot of people. I didn't know it was going to be this many. So I'm just so happy to be here. I'm so happy to see Pope Leo.
I'm actually converting, so I'm not Catholic yet. So the Pope gives me really hope for a new future for all people. Seeing him yesterday, being 5 meters from him, he really gives out the energy that is a hope for us all, I think.
It's just amazing to see just how big the world church is and how many people are here just believing in God and actually being on fire to see the Pope, to just live in this community. I really feel amazing and just very encouraged.
A dormant volcano in far eastern Russia has erupted for the first time in nearly 600 years, which experts say may be linked to last week's massive earthquake. The volcano in Kamchatka threw up a 6-kilometre-high ash plume overnight. Hours later, a large 7-magnitude earthquake struck the nearby Kuril Islands and led to tsunami warnings, which have since been lifted. It is thought that both events may be connected to a massive 8.8 magnitude earthquake which hit the area last week. Now, the residents of Blatten, the alpine village in Switzerland that was swept away by a glacier 2 months ago, could be waiting years before they're able to return. It's estimated the cost of rebuilding the village could run to hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, this has raised questions over whether preserving other high-risk alpine villages in Switzerland justifies the huge cost. We've been speaking to our Geneva correspondent, Imogen Fuchs, who began by reminding us what happened in Blatten.
Well, this was just at the end of May. Now, luckily, Blatten's 300 residents had been evacuated because geologists had been monitoring the mountain above this. It's unstable. We should move for safety. That they did, but they did not expect the magnitude of the disaster. What we found was a combination of an unstable mountainside because the permafrost had thawed, collapsed onto the glacier below it, which was thinning because the glaciers are in retreat, again related to global warming. And this brought millions of cubic meters of rock, ice and mud down onto the village, completely wiped out. I was there just last week. You would hardly believe that a village was actually under there. One tiny little roof here and there poking out, but everything else, the church, the shops, people's homes, the hotels, all gone flat.
Now on BBC News, Africa Eye investigates the violent realities of Cape Town gangs. The following programme contains language and scenes that some viewers may find distressing.
You see and hear the gunshots almost every day of your life. I can't lie to you that you get used to it, because there is no way you get used to death.
In just 3 months last year, police reported 263 gang murders in South Africa's Western Cape. "79 child deaths from gunshot wounds or stabbings, according to the local health department.
Nie like ouer as my nie, but hulle is like 'n bietjie ouer as my. Hulle speel met guns en like regte guns en ek het ook maar net een keer gedecide kom ek voel die ding en wat ek het net voel toe as ek ook maar net in die gang in.
Yeah, so we're not coming at the best time.
As violence stares through communities, a team led by a local church pastor is trying to stop the violence.
En die regte poste mense by tafel kry om die ding miskien te kry na 'n proper ceasefire toe.
Nou kom dat ek vir Pastor God so 'n voorbeeld maak. As hulle almal die vir skooltjies eers te begin te stig, en daai is waar die moeilikheid inkom.
Also, los weer die skietery.
Wat is hy weer?
Jy dood. Dat is nie so uit. Jy is dood, dan maak jy gaat dood. As jy laat daai sien nie so uit. Dood gaan.
This is Cape Town, one of the wealthiest cities in Africa. But it's also one of the most unequal and divided cities, and is the country's gang capital. More than 100 gangs are fighting for control of the lucrative drug trade. Violence is largely concentrated in a series of townships known as the Cape Flats. In Hanover Park, a neighborhood of just 50,000 people, shootings and stabbings occur almost daily.
The problem we do have is violence. Violence on a new level. I think what makes it very, very terrible now is because there is more children involved in the gangs. Because gangs are recruiting between the age of 8 years old and 15 years old. And when a child gangster runs into a group of children, acting like he's a child, the gang shoot the whole group of children. So you get 6, 7 children get shot and killed. Hello boy, how are you? Hallo, sorry man, hoe gaat het?
There has been a shooting in the night.
Okay. Hallo.
Pastor Craven Engel, working with a team of reformed gangsters, is trying to calm tensions.
Hoe is 3 o'clock aan bij man?
Het was haken om wat zij vroeg maar weer.
Oh, oké. Jo, hier voor die deur?
Ja.
Yes.
Kijk, dat is niet over mij geschrikt.
Nou.
En ik hier gestaan, toen wil ik misschien zeggen, geschrikt. Maar als je gangster en wat je gezien hebt uitgepeerd.
Natuurlijk, ja.
En ik heb die hoor, ik heb ze afgeschrikt.
Maar die klomskool is ook is via een plek.
Ja, dat is
An 18-year-old man is in a critical condition, having been caught in the crossfire.
So, Glenn het met mij gezegd van die bizarheid wat gebeurt.
Sit pas en
ik was oké, sorry. Thanks. Hij heeft me nog gezegd van die incident wat gebeurt. Toen zei ik, maar kijk maar, hoe kan die ding tijdig geresolved worden, man?
I mean, we were sitting here, we were waiting for supper time. And then I just heard the shots. My son, my youngster son,
Your younger son took
yes,
him in,
took him with our car to hospital because ons het nie meer 'n emergency service.
But they don't come in the area most now.
They don't want to come in the area, and we don't even get police visibility like we want to.
Yeah.
The police van is going to stand there. But daar gaat niemand, daar gaan nie 'n ambulance komen.
No, the ambulance, I know they don't come. Some of the communities already talking about maybe a retaliation. So now you've got a shooter on the loose somewhere that is doing and continuing maybe what he's doing. So we need to tone that shooter down.
The police say they've increased deployments across the Cape Flats, with a team stationed in Hanover Park. But families continue to live in fear. 15 kilometers east of Hanover Park, in Westbank Township, another family is grieving the loss of their child.
Soos jy kan sien hier is die was 'n bullet hole in hierdie en hy geslaap en dan is hier die wat in sy rug wat sy rug gevang het, die toetjies.
In February, their 4-year-old son Davin was killed when a series of bullets were fired into their home.
We used to sit here in the morning and we watched them how they play from close to close, but never past the closest. Like now she sit here alone outside and asked me, "Where's my brother?" So I told her, "No, I live by Jesus." In Daddy's heart and in my heart. I said, "Yeah, Papa, it is so, yeah." Because in the day she was used to her brother, morning wake up, eat together, play together, sleep together. Yeah. So on, yeah.
2 years ago, his 12-year-old sister, Kelly Amber, was also killed in crossfire.
Ja, ik heb geschreven vir jou. Ik het dus as gevolg gelijk ik raak mal en gesê ja, asseblief nog weer kan teen. Uitgehaal ik mes ja gedink ek ging nie om weer buite kan staan of wat die wat het geskree toe kom ons 'n neighbor uit. Die een oor die pad as ook 'n medical. Sy werk by die medic. Maar dan toe ek kan of mos het Ivan. Maar sy kon gesien het Ivan wou. Maar ek kon nie en
Maar is het seep? Hy, omdat hy is my enigste boy wat ek het. Maar al wat ek vraag niet iets. Ik zoek niet zasters, man.
This is the Church and Community Center, where the pastor and his team are based.
And Hanover Park doesn't really have an economy as to speak of. The most thriving economy is to sell one kind of a substance. The bulk of the economy comes out of the drug culture. That's the biggest economy.
They mediate gang conflicts and treat violence like a disease. Their focus, detection, interruption, and changing mindsets.
Our whole aim is to reduce the violence within the community so that people can be safer, kids can walk safely to school, and children can play outside. And also get gangs to talk to one another.
The team is trying to negotiate a temporary ceasefire between two warring factions, the Ghetto Kids and the OTFs.
Hi, good morning, Abby, Glenn, and Wesley. Listen and tell me, did we get an appointment with those guys that we can come see them this morning? Did they give permission for us to come? Let me know what's happening, no? But let me know. Thanks. So also give him a call quickly. Abby, listen, tell me wat gaan Anna ask with ons appointment gekry? Hey? Okay, thanks. All right, hey, Abby. All right, bye.
The gang boss they want to speak to, whose word counts on the streets, is in prison.
Hallo?
Wat sê pa as jy ry?
Ek is right my bro, man. Ek try mos om vir jou te volg vanoggend. Om te hoor of jy weet van die ceasefire wat mos nou aan die gang is hier in die backstreets en tussen Cowboy Town en die jungle en die OTF's en die kettles.
Ek het vir hulle nou die ander dag gesê self, ek is 'n man, as ek dinge wil laat gebeur, dan gebeur dit nog altyd. En Pastor ken vir my, as ek is iemand, as ek aan die fire kom en dan counter ek, sien Pastor en die skietery gaan nog altyd aan.
En die regte poste mense by tafel kry om die ding miskien te kry na 'n proper ceasefire toe man.
Nou kom dat ek vir Pastor gou so 'n voorbeeld maak, as hulle almal die different skooltjies eers begin te stig, en daai is waar die moeilikheid inkom.
Altyd los jy die skietery. Ons het wel gesê, net die skietery moet hulle nou los en net mekaar respek vir nou. So, alright my friend, alright. Sterkte ramen, bro, bye. How does a kid get shot 7 times in his head or 3 times in his back? A stray bullet hits a kid. How does a kid get targeted and get killed, assassination style? And that to us, it's very sad. How to solve that? It's a big issue.
The program had been getting government money, but that has since dried up. Hanover Park was built during apartheid as a segregated mixed-race community. It was designed to keep people of color away from affluent white families. There are still very few opportunities.
We can't go on year after year, century after century, just blaming apartheid, but it sits at the base. Apartheid was actually designed to cripple a nation 30 years after a handover to a democratic government. It's happening. There's a self-destruction happening.
Nando Johnson is a shooter in a gang called the Mongrels. But he's had enough.
Op daai rede wat maak het ek het vir Pastor gevra om te hê, is daar nie miskien 'n betere plan vir ons om te uitwerk, man, om te dinge. Soos ek sê, vir die jare wat ons nou aan Mongrels is, ken ons trong uit. Ander broers skiet 'n man dood, sy gaat trong toe. So regverdigheid moet kan kom.
Wat soort roof of poging of wat het julle gedoen nou, as jy mens nou moet terugkyk?
As jy nou moet terugkyk, meeste ek het nie mense ek net moet en kan. Hier uit die dinge sien ek net 2 options. As hy is te zeggen Toronto, zeggen dood.
The pastor's team is offering them a way out.
Nando and Bradley joined the Mongrel gang as youngsters. We could almost say they're born into the Mongrel gang because, it's a whole family was already involved. We zoom in where the need is needed most. We negotiate gang conflicts among different gangs and look at which members would like to make an exit or change their behavior, change their life. Thank you.
Okay.
So we're gonna see if these guys are serious about changing their life. Yeah, you're good. The one recently came out of prison, so we're gonna see how it goes. Yeah, you're good. Hey, my bro.
Is dit die main man? Was?
Huh? Ons allemaal was niet daar geweest. Raar, hij man zo. Hij zit daar mooi recht met zijn gouden tand. Wat stoot was ons geweest aan onze tijd. En dan zit je ook aan om het zijn te maken. Alright.
Ja.
Hier komen we even een dag voor jou al. Is hij recht wat dag?
Ja,
En die staakse van die is, man. Zo kan je opbouwen. Zo kan ze in het jobpunt komen. Zo kan je je geld het mogen. Of ze niet hier rond te skarrelen. Is iemand wat hier nou brengen. Dat is ze recht mee, broek. Oké. Ah, ze.
En als je broers niet afzien.
Als kan die broers afzien, ja? there's like a new norm that was accepted, that we are derailed. There's no hope for us, so we are trying to break that norm.
Ik wil type veranderen. Als altijd wijn, als een plan. So ik het bepaald voor als het daar is misschien een plan naar uitweg. Kan pas me go.
He'll join a 6 to 12 week program of rehabilitation, run by the pastor and funded by charitable donations, designed to get people off drugs and into work.
We gaan hem baie gou in die week indruk dat hy iets kan verdien, man. No? Iets kan verdien. Kijk hier, voor jou help en zo. Hij wil, ja.
For Nando's mum, there's still hope.
Maar Nando's pa was een gangster. Maar mijn andere kinderen pa was geen gangster nie. Hij was een gentleman. Maar hij was nou een gangster en daarvan hadden die kinderen nog in gangsterisme gegaan. En ik heb baie gepraat met hulle en die. En het was voor mij, it wasn't easy. Het was niet makkelijk voor mij om 4 boys groot te maken. En alleen gewerkt voor hulle. Ik praat baie met hem. Ik is baie lief voor hem.
This is where the gunshots meet. And living on the border, it's living with fear. Yeah, it's living with fear because anytime a bullet can deflect and come in and take anyone's life.
At the boundary where 2 rival gangs meet, the fighting is most intense.
Yeah. Are you living here now with them? Okay, thankful, so we know there's some post of something happening. Okay.
There's no figure.
I know.
Marcelino is afraid for his younger nephew, 16-year-old Esteban.
Esteban is the young man that we detected about when he was 12 years old. Our system detected a possible formation of a gang. And I said, let's target this kid, man, and get this kid out of this group. It took us 3 years. He is a true success story. And they've got a positive uncle that's helping the rest of the family find their way. But he would have been today one of these high-risk gang leaders.
Ja, ek het dagse proses om mense seer te maak, mense te rob, val op die grond en ek kruip in huis toe en hy skiet my niefie al deur die holbanke wat die kwaai gesit vir my nie en soos alles geskiet het en toe besluit ek op niks is kwaai om nog 'n gang se te visie van meeste van die kinders is doodgeskiet en as jy lekker om te sien hoe hulle iemand doodskiet voor jou nie en daai is waar ek my oë oopgemaak het.
Nando has arrived at rehab.
Hello, gentlemen, hello. How's things? Hi, you all right?
It's a huge step for a young man who has only ever known gang life.
No. So net 'n lekker respek en dissipline met hulle twee. As dit 'n walk in the park. No. We've got various ways to sort of alter behaviors,